We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
1, 2, 3, listen.
Welcome to Finances, your home for all things financial, investment, money and lifestyle. Hosted and curated by the very talented team of certified financial planners, Burke, Britton Financial Partners. So, today's guest, Will Ainsworth. I didn't really do a bio for you, mate. All I really had was that you're Australia's #1 real estate agent. Now, I did have there on your bio on the Gartland real estate website. You're in the top 1% of agents in the country, and you've sold more than 1,000 properties. Is that right? Is that hyperbole?
I think if you look at every agent's profile, it says the same, but no.
That's just a cut and paste.
Yeah. I saw one I liked and went, I'll take that. But no, the 1% is, 1% of volume sold. So,
okay.
Not many agents sell 100 properties a year.
Yeah.
And I have and continue to do so. So there's 1% of agents in the country that do that. So yep. I'm not the #1 agent in the country. So
what's the metric? What's the preferred metric? Is it volume? Is it dollars of property? What is it? What's the preferred metric for agents these days?
It's a good question. It depends who you ask, because if you ask me, it's volume. If you ask an agent in Melbourne or Sydney, it's gross commission, because every property they sell, it's worth $10 million. They make $200,000 commission. I have to sell 20 properties to make that. So it depends on, I think, your market as to how you grade yourself. And it's only us grading ourselves. No one else gives a shit.
Yeah.
But when you go and try and list someone's property and you go, I've done this and I've done that.
They just sell my property,
Yeah,
mate.
I couldn't care less what you've done. So it's really just a trophy we give ourselves in the industry, not...
Isn't it funny how we do that? Yeah, we're in the... We do the same in the financial planning world. Well, it's changed a little bit of recent time due to conflicts of interest. They can't reward and recognise practices for volume, which is fair enough. Yeah. That's kind of the way it is. You go to an award ceremony and you get we've got a couple of, I think they've taken them down. We had some silver awards behind you, and someone said, what are you displaying silver awards for? If you haven't won gold, then get rid of it. So we took down our silver awards. Anyway, it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter. No one cares. Like you said, we'll talk property, but before we do, mate, let's talk a little bit about you. I was trying to work out, how long have we known each other for?
I know you're asking this question, so I bring up the two.
I actually hadn't written it down at all.
The 2003 double grand final that we played against each other. And
well, now that you raise it, I think that I think we knew each other earlier through, maybe it was one of your brother's girlfriends or something like that. I don't know.
Oh, but potentially.
But that really didn't stick in my mind. That obviously 2003 Bell Park Premiership, that stuck in my mind.
Yeah.
So let's roll with 2003 as when we first caught up and met, and we were mortal enemies.
Yeah, we were. And I think when I met you, like outside of the footy arena, I was like, fuck, I'm pretty nervous to speak to this bloke, because you only know them know people from the bravado they give you on field.
Yeah.
Didn't know any different. I'm like, this bloke's angry on the field. He's going to be angry in real life, which turns out to be true, by the way.
It does.
But yeah, I think we then got into a bit of CrossFit together, and
maybe we ran before that.
Oh, we did too.
We did. So and
then you rolled your ankle and that stopped pretty quickly.
Yeah. Actually, I forgot about that. Yeah, up the deviation hill.
Yeah.
Rolled my ankle. That blew up beautifully.
It did.
Yeah, but you stuck with me. That's probably a good reflection of your personality type, mate. You're always there for your friends, always sticking by them.
You'll find a silver lining in anything that happens.
What else did we do? We did a bit of bike riding as well. You took me on a couple of tours around Geelong.
Yeah, and seeing you in Leichhardt, I put a pretty quick end to that cycling journey.
And then CrossFit, and then we
played a bit of footy together.
We did.
Like old man footy.
We did. We actually rekindled our football spirit on the same team, and I think that was we won a premiership, an AFL Nines premiership out at Deakin, Geelong. Well, big barge Lockie Kennedy ran through my left leg and ruptured my ACL again. That was great.
Yeah, we can't slow down as quickly as we used to. So that put your footy career Like, it was already over.
It was done, mate. It was done. My last game was 2003. My last game of...
Was it?
It was the grand... Well, now that you bring it up again, so that premiership that we won over St Mary's after a drawn grand final that we hadn't beaten you all year, and then we played you for a fifth time for the year and beat you, that was my last game. So it's a nice way to finish up. How'd you go that game, those two games?
First game I actually played really well.
I actually do recall you playing pretty well on the wing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bit of a, I'll let them, the bigger bodies, do the hard work and get it out to me, and I'll run. Never changed. And then game 2, I think for the last quarter of the first game, all I could think about was Mad Monday and the celebrations, and by the second game I was cooked. I was like, this is not how it was meant to be. I'm emotionally, physically drained, and I think I spent probably the half the game on the bench.
Yeah.
Like, I was useless.
You probably had as many touches as I did in that second game. I started on the... Actually, I think I started and finished on the bench. Kenny Hinkley apologised to me afterwards and said, I kind of forgot it was your last game. I probably should have got you on the ground. I said, yeah, thanks, mate. Anyway.
You still have the medallion around your neck too.
Yeah. It's somewhere. It's a pretty bad medallion. That's pretty dodgy.
Are they?
Yeah.
You didn't do a Jeremy Cameron and put it around a calf's neck or anything?
No, I didn't. I was nearly going to tell a story then, but I actually did a tour. I did a tour of, I went to the States. Do you know Stuart Neal?
No.
So a mate of mine was working as a lifty in Canada, in Whistler, and after the grand final, I went to Whistler, first trip overseas, and I took my premiership jumper and my premiership medallion, and I have a photo in just about every spot. So on the top of Whistler, Blackcomb Mountain, we went to New Year's Eve, Times Square. There's me with the bell, like everyone, they really gave two shits about this GFL premiership that I'd won, but, I was pretty stoked.
Of course you are.
I've carried that elation all the way through to today's conversation. So thanks for allowing me to win that premiership medal.
That's okay. I am a giving person, and that day was no different.
So your background, mate, where you were, I don't know whether I've ever asked this, you're a Geelong born and bred?
Yep. Yeah, grew up Geelong. Tried to move away a couple of times.
Where did you go to school?
Geelong Grammar.
Yep.
I say that with some trepidation because you get judged, good or bad. But as soon as you say that, you're put in a category of you little rich prick. Or
how much do you care about what people think about you?
Probably more than I put on. Probably more than I put on.
I think we all do.
Yeah. No, it's fair. I care how many likes I get on Facebook, so I've got to say I care how what people think of me. So I went to Geelong Grammar, didn't do very well. I genuinely was just, cared about sport and girls, and thought I'd be an AFL player. So, had my career mapped out, and then I stopped growing at 5'10" and about 65 kilos, and realised that wasn't going to happen. So anyway, I did pretty average at school, and then I tried a lot of things after school. I was a garbo.
Yep.
Which I actually still loved. I look back with fond memories. I met a lot of interesting characters. And
whereabouts did you collect rubbish?
Everywhere around Geelong.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you work with Jerker?
Yep.
You did?
That's how I met Jerker. Okay. And as I said, a lot of good people I met doing
Who else was on the tins back then?
Rowie. Aaron
Rao.
Yeah.
Yep.
And some other people who, when you mentioned about Geelong Grammar, if I mentioned to some of them I went to Geelong Grammar, it was a pretty average couple of hours because you judge pretty quickly. So I did that, and then I worked at some restaurants and this, that and the other, and I drank a lot back then, and I ended up losing my licence for drink driving up in Melbourne.
Yep.
And then I remember Dad saying to me, not in these exact words, but basically, you've got nothing going for yourself. Go overseas and find yourself. I think that was sort of what he said. And
how old were you then?
21.
Yep.
And so he paid for me to go over to London and just do whatever. And I didn't realise you needed a visa to work over there. So I got over there. I'm like, cool. So I'll get some work. And everyone's like, no, you need a visa. I'm like, I didn't know that you did. And so I ended up meeting some Aussies and played footy over there. And as you do, end up just spending my whole freaking time with Aussies in Aussie pubs over there.
Whereabouts did you stay? Isn't there
Shepherd's Bush?
Shepherd's Bush, yeah.
Did every cliche Aussie thing you can do.
What's the pub? The
Walkabout.
The Walkabout, yep.
Lived just around the corner from that. We actually won a flag as well over there and went to Corfu for 7 days on our footy trip, which was one of the best times of my life. Came back from overseas and then still had a few months without my license. So I went down to Port Arlington where my dad was living at the time and lived with him and just worked in a restaurant and played some footy. And
Did you play for Port Arlington?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went from winning lots of games at St Mary's to losing lots of games at Port Arlington. It was a great club though. Really, really good club. You got to be when you're losing a lot. There's got to be good people around you to keep you up.
Who are you playing with down there? Who would I know from Port Arlington?
You would know Paul Lynch.
Yep.
Aaron Langsworth.
Mm-hmm.
The three of us waxed in the midfield and had a good time. But then once it got out of the midfield, there wasn't a lot going on there. So
was Damien Vassalou down there? Or
yeah,
no?
yes. I think he was playing cricket.
Okay.
Don't think he was playing footy at the time. And then I remember Dad saying, and this is kind of verbatim, I think he said, "You talk a lot of shit. You should get into real estate."
You were pretty lippy as a footballer.
I was pretty lippy. I'd start the fights and run away and let the big people deal with it. And I was like, nah, I hate houses. I don't like people. He used to drag me along to auctions when I was a kid because he is a solicitor.
I was going to say, your dad was a solicitor and your grandfather was a solicitor as well. And your grandfather's who you were named after? Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. Jesus.
So I've done my research.
I've done some research. Far out. So, yeah, and didn't carry on the legal profession because I couldn't.
Did your dad want you to or not?
No. I wouldn't have been able to anyway because I wasn't smart enough. But I remember him saying, like, 35 years within the same four walls just drove him insane. So, did what it needed to do, helped us all go to grammar and live a nice life and stuff. But he didn't, I don't think he liked it. That's just what he did back then because he did well at school and whatever good marks you get, you go into that field of work. Anyway, so
your dad suggested property.
I think it was more you got nothing else to do. It wasn't like you've got all these choices. It was kind of like, well, you've tried this, you shit. You tried that, you didn't work, and you didn't get enough grades to go to uni. So
when I knew you in 2003, was that pre or post you having gone overseas?
Pre.
That was pre-overseas?
Yeah, so I went overseas just after that.
Okay.
And then St Mary's won the grand final the following year. Yeah, that was great. Good decision. So, yeah, that was, in a way, that was a bit of a turning point in my life or a bit of a fork in the road where I was a bit of a brat and, as I said, drank a lot. I didn't really do, a lot of, when I look back on it, I was pretty irresponsible and.
It was not unique to you, though.
Not really. I've just learned to curb it. I'm still that person, but I can't afford to do that these days. Not financially. I just have a family and stuff, so I can't be a brat. So I got my real estate license. Dad said, you got to come into my office every day, and because he knew I couldn't study, and he basically sat me in his office and said, you got to do that for 2 weeks.
So what year is this roughly?
2004.
Okay.
And then he got me a job at Gartland because he knew Bob Gartland.
Yep.
And I got there and they said, there's your desk, there's your phone, go make some sales. And I'm like this 23-year-old, like, what the fuck? What am I doing?
Welcome to Cold Calling 101.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there looking at the phone going, when's that going to ring for someone to want to sell a house? And it never rang. And so I ended up actually just selling other people's houses I had for sale because I didn't know any different. No one wanted to sell with me, so I just sold their houses.
Yeah.
It was a steep learning curve because it wasn't like if you got into real estate now, you might come under someone like me and I'll train you up and teach you the ropes. It was just sink or swim.
Yeah, Bob and your dad sound like they're cut from the same cloth as my old man. Exactly the same thing. And mine was sort of 2001-ish. And I didn't know what I was going to do. Just decided that I'd join the family business. And he said, there's a list of clients. They've got an insurance or a super policy. Go for it. I didn't know what I was doing. Had no idea. And back then, you could get your financial planning license in the back of a Wheaties box pretty much.
Yeah.
I think I did a 2-week course in Sydney. And then they called me a financial advisor or a financial planner and went, oh, cool. Okay. What do I do now? And it was kind of sink or swim back then. It sounds like the real estate industry was a bit like that as well.
Yeah. I think it still is to a degree because you can still get your license very easily. And like you, people's biggest financial assets are under your care and control and you've no idea what you're doing. It's pretty
scary.
Ruthless and scary. Yeah.
Well, there's a reason there's been a lot of upheaval in our industry because there's been a lot of cowboys, a lot of people that came through around the same time as me or even prior to that really had no business being or calling themselves financial advisors. And so it's probably a good thing that they're no longer in the industry. But, So Bob Gartland gave you a gig.
Yeah.
How long were you at Gartland's?
About a year.
Yeah.
And then actually, I won't say it because he might listen to this, so I've got a lot of respect for Bob.
We can cut it out.
Gartland's like the Gold Coast Suns of the AFL where lots of good people have been through there and then traded elsewhere.
Yep.
So it was a good learning curve, but I got poached by David and Jim to go to Ray White.
Yep.
I won't go through my whole career because we'll be here for hours, but I had moved around a lot over the years. I think my ego got stroked by different people. And then
You're a mercenary is what you're saying. Just like in your football days.
Yeah, there's a trend there for sure. I put it down to I get bored and impatient, but I don't know about the older I get, the more I think salespeople are the easiest people to sell to. And I think people just sell me the dream. I'm like, yeah, that looks good. I'll go and do that. So I've learned how to start at a business well because I've tried it a lot of times and know how to fill out a tax file declaration form and all that sort of jazz.
Yep.
But I also, having worked at so many different places, I've got the fortunate experience of knowing what to do and what not to do. Like I've seen a lot. So I've picked and chosen bits and pieces from everyone and left behind what I didn't like, and that's sort of formed what I've become as a real estate agent. Yeah. Because no one's reinventing the wheel. Like, I don't know what your profession's like, but you kind of look for what good people are doing and just rip off and duplicate in your own.
Yeah, I was thinking about this with thinking about you in real estate, and you said that you're just kind of ripping off what other people have done. But I'd have to say that you're one of the first real estate agents that truly used social media, and maybe that's a few years after. So when did you join with David and Jim?
2005.
2005. Okay, so social media wasn't really a thing then, but I remember you using video, like actually being in front of the camera and having a personality when it comes to your business and promoting what you actually do, and that was unique. I remember that being unique, and that sort of was your point of difference. Or what I saw as just an observer, your point of difference at that time. Now, everyone's copied you since then.
Yeah.
And every person has a camera crew that follows them around, and they do a beautiful monologue for a property. But at the time, when did you start doing that? It
would have been 2010, 12, something like that.
Yeah.
So you're right. I say it jokingly, but I've spent my whole career trying to be different in a way that obviously represents my clients in a positive way. But I think there's a saying that if you squint, all real estate agents look the same. And it's probably true to a degree. So I have tried to be different and tried to be a leader in the industry and adding technology and all that sort of stuff to differentiate myself. But very quickly, like you mentioned, others follow. So there's only a limited window that it is a difference. So I'm always trying to find that point of difference. And I also fail a lot in finding the wrong point of difference. But I keep on trying. Like that's sort of my motto in life is I just keep on doing something differently to keep evolving. That I don't like staying still. As I mentioned, moving around a lot. Yeah. It's probably the same wherever I am at the time. I just try and evolve.
So you failed plenty in your time.
Yeah.
So let's continue the timeline. We won't labour the multiple changes of occupation or workplace, but with Jim and David, how long were you there for? Where'd you go after that?
Yeah, so I stayed with them, and then I actually moved to Melbourne and worked in Yarraville for a little while for a company called Jazz Stevens.
Real estate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because my partner at the time, now wife Lauren, as you know, she said, "You're too good for Geelong. You should try it up with the big boys."
Talk about stoking your ego.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, tell me about it. You wonder why I am like I am. Maybe I said that to her. And now I say, I probably said, I'm too good for Geelong. And then I blamed
this shithole.
Yeah, this shithole. So, but that did end very abruptly and sadly because my old man did pass away when I was up there and I fell into a pretty dark place. So we moved back to Geelong.
So that was 2011?
Yeah. Yeah, moved back to Geelong just to be close to family and friends and, just the comfort zone, I guess. And I had to kind of mentally rebuild from there. So that took the wind out of my sails for a number of years. I then went back to Ray White and then with Jim and David, and then we changed brands to McGrath, which is what it's known as now. And as I mentioned at the start of the podcast, then I finished up with them in about 2020. Was it early 2020 when COVID? I think it was like Feb, something like that.
Yep.
Had a couple of years on the sidelines, tried a different profession, but still in the real estate industry.
So what was that again?
It was a company called Open with two N's. It's basically an online platform of how to sell real estate. It's kind of like an online auction, which I was using myself as an agent for a while, once again, trying to be a bit of point of difference.
Did they headhunt you?
No, it was kind of a mutual thing. It was, not really. But I genuinely, when I finished up, was done with real estate. Like, I know everyone says, no, you were just, I had a restraint of trade, as all directors do. But I was done with real estate. I hated
I think
it.
I might have even had a conversation with you about the fact that you were done. I thought, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Change of direction.
But I'm pretty sure everyone walked away going, yeah, that won't last. But I was the only one that was convinced myself of that. And then I was working in James Street in town. That was where my office was when I was working with Open. And then I'd catch up with Michael DeStefano from Gartland just for coffees and just to shoot the breeze. And then little did I know that he was working on me to get me back into it. Yeah, I know. Silly. I'm vague sometimes, I think. But anyway.
No, I think you knew. You probably knew.
I probably did know. And then, you know, he basically said to me, because we've always talked about working together, but it was just never something that really came to fruition. And then we sort of mapped out the future, and I said, I like that concept, and here we are today. So I've been there 12 months.
Yep.
And very happy.
You touched on your dad. It would be remiss of us not to talk about your dad. He passed away in 2011. Your dad was captain of the Geelong Footy Club.
He was. Yep.
And your dad passed away in 2011. You were close with your dad. Yeah. And you've been pretty open about your struggles. You mentioned earlier that you probably drank more than you should, as we probably all did.
Yeah.
Always have this, well, you and I have shared some family loss.
Yeah.
One of the things that I always struggle to articulate to people is that having lost two of my brothers, how do I put it, that I'm actually a better person as a result of that happening.
Yeah.
Which, sometimes people can take that the wrong
I
way.
know.
Like I'm happy that I've lost family members, but what kind of impact did your old man have on you other than getting your jobs? What kind of impact did your old man have on you and kind of the person that you are today? Dad
was a really smart man, and I suppose like most, I don't know whether I can say this, but he had his demons as well. Like he had a pretty rough upbringing, and he was an alcoholic, as a lot of my family members are. Not my immediate family, but we've got a bit of that history in our family. And I think it's, you know, how they've masked all the stress and whatever else we go through. So he was battling his demons, and as a kid I didn't really know that, because you don't see that. You see what you want to see, I suppose, with your parents. And I just saw a generous man that always had interest in what I did. And then as I got older, he financially supported me a lot. So I was on, as we say, I was on the boob a fair bit. You know, he funded the overseas trip, and so I've got a lot to be grateful there. Probably didn't teach me the best way to save money, because whenever I ran out, he was there for me.
He could have told you that you needed a visa for starters.
Yeah, I know. Thanks, mate. Yeah. So he didn't do that. He funded the trip but didn't give me the visa or get me the visa. So obviously I can't say like everyone, because I don't know what everyone's experience is like with their mum and dad or brothers or sisters or whatever. But for me, it was like losing part of my life. Like it was like, and still to this day, like you mentioned, I'll be grieving this loss for the rest of my life in some way, shape or form. But what it did do was I stopped drinking from probably 6 months after he died, because I could see very clearly that the path he had led was where I was heading. So I made the difficult decision to stop drinking, which is a whole probably podcast in itself.
When you say difficult, like physically difficult to give up drinking, or socially difficult?
All and sundry. It was. I lost my network of friends very quickly after that.
Interesting.
Yeah. I still grieve that loss as well, because very quickly I stopped getting invited to bucks parties and weddings and stuff like that, because the only real association we had was drinking together, and you took that away, and people go, well, you don't want those types of people in your life, but that was important to me. That was my social network. Yeah,
it's still kind of fun. Like, that's the thing, that you can't totally disregard the enjoyment that you had at times when you were drinking.
Well, they're some of the best memories of my life. As 100%. I said, Corfu, footy trips, 21st, all that stuff. I don't know any different, but I look back on those times as some of the best times of my life. But I know that I kind of could do that at the time because I didn't have any dependents, or it was just me, and I was struggling with my own existence. So like you mentioned about the loss of your brothers, I wouldn't have stopped drinking if Dad didn't die. And where would I be today? Probably nowhere near. And what we call success, once again, you can make a whole podcast around how we determine success. But I think I've lived a fairly successful life. If I died tomorrow, I reckon I've done all right in all facets of life. I haven't done exceptionally well with anything, but I've done pretty well with everything I've had a go at. And I'm proud of that. If I kept drinking, I don't think I would have done anywhere near the stuff that I've done. But giving up drinking, still to this day, I go to end of year parties and I sit there and go, fuck, why can't I do that? And sometimes I go, maybe I will, but I don't. And I never will. But it's just something that enters my mind. It's a bit of a, because I think I am an alcoholic. Like I don't know, but I think I am because I think about it a lot. I dream about drinking beer.
Yeah. I remember Jack gave up drinking. I think he was about 5 years without a drink. And I said to him, do you feel like a beer still? He goes, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Always. He goes, when we have a social event, when it's Christmas and people are socially, it's so ingrained in our culture. And again, you can't disregard that it's enjoyable.
I know.
But there's also consequences. There's that trade-off.
Yeah.
And some people can do it, some people can't. So personal development's kind of a word that's been co-opted a little bit, but I'm always cautious about using that when I talk about myself and sort of, your personal growth and personal development. It's these catchphrase words that have been overused, but you kind of went on a fairly significant tangent in your life post your dad passing away and sort of exploring yourself a little bit more. You've obviously focused plenty more on your health and your fitness, and as you said, you're pretty open on the social media front talking about your battles with mental health. Where along the line did you find Lauren? Because we can't get to the end of the podcast and not talk about your kids either. So.
Yeah.
And how did they straighten you up?
So when I was at Gartland the first time, there was a young blonde girl that used to walk past every day.
I was going to say she was the receptionist.
No. She used to walk up past every day with the mail at 3:45, taking it down. She was working at a stockbroking firm. And
where did she work?
Wilson HTM.
Okay.
They'd rebranded a few times, but she worked there. And she was only 18 at the time. I was 24. I know. If you could see what eyes Jay's pulling right now.
I'm on camera, mate.
Oh, yeah. Good. You can see it. I remember saying to Michael Stefano, she's all right. And he's like, yeah, she's young. I said, so what? She's 18, so that's old enough. And I remember asking her at a date. Actually, no, very quick story. The Geelong Addy approached me once and said, we're doing a Bachelor article thing.
Bachelor of the Year.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Do you want to be in it? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Any publicity is good publicity. And so they interviewed me. And also it was actually Jared Panozzo.
Okay.
He was the tradie. I was the white collar. And there was someone else. And Lauren and I still argue who contacted who to this day, but I'm certain she sent me a text message because I'm like, my details are on there. How would I have known who you were? It wasn't. So we went down to Barwon Heads where I was living at the time, went for a beer, and then...
Sorry, so she saw you because of the Bachelor of the Year. You're on the front page of the Addy or something with Nozza?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, insert. It wasn't the front page, but...
I was going to say, it's not much competition.
No.
Well, Lauren's looked at Nozza, looked at you, and just gone, well, it's a pretty obvious choice. If they're the only two options.
That's it. So we ended up going on a date down in Barwon Heads. She drank a raspberry and I had a beer because she was on her P's. And we're now married with 3 kids. So fast forward, like any relationship, we've had ups and downs, and we got married in 2011, something like that. 6 months after we'd had George, who was our eldest, and he's now 10 or 11. So yeah, about 11 years ago we got married, had George, who's, now, as I said, now 10, Hugh, who's now 9, and Harriet, who's now 4. Unlike you, we've stopped at 3, and I think that'll do us. But yeah, 3 amazing kids, and I'm not going to sit here and say like every day is rosy. Having kids is a real challenge. They're growing up and having their challenges at school and, with their friends. And so I guess I'm trying to use my life experience to help them navigate through their life. But maybe like most modern parents, I try and win their battles for them, or I'm trying to think of like, I don't like to see them fail and be upset. So I try and intervene and solve everything for them, which I know is not a good trait, but it's hard because, you love them and you feel emotional about it.
Yeah, it's super hard. You're seeing your kids fail. Like, it's painful.
Yeah.
It's really painful.
And I think it brings old wounds up as well. You're like, I remember that time, and you try and you don't want them to feel like that. But I think that's what all people need to grow up. We all need to learn resilience. And
I think we've catastrophized failing for kids to the point where we just can't handle any failure.
Yeah.
That's everyone gets an award. No one wins, no one loses, which...
Put your silver awards on display. That's...
Yeah, but I mean, Kari and I talk about it regularly. About how, if you looked, like, social media is probably the worst example of it. That you're looking at everyone's life and their highlight reel of how they parent, and it looks amazing. And the reality is just not the case. I mean, every day is can be a struggle, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
I would not have it any other way. All the shit that you have to deal with as a parent, it gives me a newfound respect for my parents. I mean, one of 3 boys, we were just terrors.
Yeah.
We just didn't do what we were told ever. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, we were kind of sink or swim. And again, it's older school. You're right. The modern day parent is probably more inclined to want a helicopter parent, which that instinct I don't think is, if it stays there, I don't think it's a good one.
No, I don't either. Because at some stage they're going to be on their own without the helicopter and they're going to struggle. So, yeah, that's like everything. I read books on how to be a better real estate agent, how to be better mental health, all that sort of stuff. I still read books on how to be a better father and husband and all that sort of stuff. But I quickly forget. Like, I read the book and go, right, now I've got it all. And I go home and then something occurs and it throws all that out the window because I'm tired or I'm stressed or I've had a shit day or something. And
you're human.
Yeah, yeah. And all of that theory just goes. I'm like, fuck. And I get annoyed with myself because I didn't do what I thought I should do at that point in time.
It's a little bit like what you said before when you have those pivotal moments in your life, like when you were sitting at Bean Squeeze. It really is just the culmination of all of these little successes and failures along the way. Yeah, we're a work in progress, mate. We are a work in progress, and I don't have all the answers. I got you on the podcast to give me all the answers.
Yeah, right. Well, the finer questions and finer answers. We might need to rename the podcast, but I remember looking at my parents when I was, say, my kids' age now, and looking at them going, they know everything. They're financially stable. I didn't think of it like those words, but comfort. I looked at them and gone, they know everything and they've got everything under control. Geez, imagine being a fly on the wall now, going back into their life. They were like probably you and I, struggling every day to make sure that everything's right.
Yeah.
I'm 40 and turning 41, and I think I know less than I did when I was 20. Like, I'm still trying to discover.
Yeah, the more you know, the more you realise you don't know.
Yeah.
Or what you don't know.
Yeah. And it becomes hard because you're like, fuck, I thought I'm meant to be at the age where I'm meant to be mature and understand more about life. And then George comes home and tells me something about politics. I'm like, oh, yeah, I knew that.
And he's thinking, Dad knows everything.
Well,
just like your old man telling me, yeah, mate.
The beauty now is I can quickly go and Google something, whereas the old man used to have to look up the encyclopedias in the living room. Yeah.
Make it up.
Yeah, I couldn't disprove him.
No,
Yeah.
you'd ask Dad a question, he'd give you some bullshit answer, and you go, oh, Dad's so smart.
I know.
So smart. Dad knows everything. I mean, my number, which is number 4, she thinks I'm the smartest, I'm the strongest, most powerful person on the planet. It's beautiful. And I'll continue to roll with that facade for a few more years until she works me out. But yeah, you're right. You do get a better appreciation of your folks, and sometimes it's a bit shattering to your world too when you grow up and you go, oh, you sort of look back at your folks and you realise that they weren't the perfect people that you thought that they were, but I think that's just across the board. Parents do a great job of shielding their kids from their own troubles, their own demons, and that cycle will continue. And hopefully, like you said, we can pass on some of the lessons learned to our kids, and they can be better people as a result.
Yeah.
Mate, we're let's talk a little bit about property, because you are you're obviously Australia's number 1 real estate agent.
All gold awards for me.
Oh, yeah.
Silver shit.
We did win it. We did win a couple of gold awards just years ago, and we didn't have a certificate for them. So
Sure.
I'll mock one up and put it up for us next time.
Right.
Did you watch The Block?
No.
You're not into any of those $1 million listings. And
no.
Sakari dragged me in on the final episode of The Block, wherever they were, up in
Wellington or Gisborne.
Something like that, yeah. Apparently there was significant controversy over the auction, and I was going to ask you what you thought about that.
I've been told, and I haven't watched it, but I've seen highlights, and I must admit I don't really have an opinion because I just find it also, it's just not how real life real estate works.
Well, that's kind of my point, that how, when we talk about what...
Well, for starters, vendors set reserves, not the TV network.
Yeah.
Based on ratings and financials. So
and every property on the show's got the same reserve.
Yeah. It just doesn't. It's not how real life works.
And then the vendors were either halting or proceeding with the auction based upon not the profit, but the prize money that they would receive. It was totally co-opted by a sort of a false standard, I think. So when you talk about, like, done a few auctions, how many of the 1,000 properties that you've sold?
I've probably called over 1,000 auctions because they're not all for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably a lot.
Do you go to auction school? What's the deal with? Because I've seen you in action before, mate.
Yeah,
You're pretty impressive.
No, but like everything, I've kind of self-taught. Once again, watched other great auctioneers and ripped off a bit of what they do and put it into my own personality. But in Victoria, every other state, you've got to have a license to call an auction. In Victoria, if you're a real estate agent, you can call an auction. So anyone can. Does that mean everyone should? Absolutely not. I've just done training out in the street. When I used to drink, I used to auction beers off with mates and just have a bit of fun with it.
Used to do mock auctions. Did I see doing mock auctions with was it Gartlands or with?
Yeah, we do both. Yeah, so we go out in the street and just sell a fake property, and the general public walk past and throw in a bid and get involved. It's good for training, but it's also good for branding. People see you learning and practicing. And
for those uninitiated, mate, what are the conditions or what are the rules of an auction?
As in when you bid?
Yes. Yeah.
So there's no dummy bids allowed. The auctioneer determines.
I think that was one of the issues with the block, was that they thought that one of the guys was a dummy bidder.
Yeah, because he's a same nationality or same religion.
Was that it?
I think they were Muslim.
Okay.
From memory, or what I've been told once again. So I think people have just tried to join the dots, and I don't know.
I think he ended up going on and buying one of the other properties.
Yeah, which completely once again disproves that whole rationale.
Yeah.
But anyway,
if you put in a bid, you have to buy the property. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So auction rules are fairly generic, but the auctioneer determines the amount, the bidding's to be advanced. Auctioneer can withdraw the property at any time.
How do you, as the auctioneer, how do you decide the increments? Is it on gut feel? Is it on discussions you've had with potential buyers before the auction starts? How do you do it?
Yeah, it's a collection of all of those, and then over time it becomes a bit of an intuition based on reading the play. But the easiest way to explain is the further away if you are from reserve, the bigger the increments need to be to get there closer. Once you're at reserve, within reason, you take any bid because that's more money for the owner. But some buyers try and knock you down with your bids, and they think that's their right. But once again, the auctioneer determines the amount by which the bidding's to be advanced. So you're entitled to refuse a bid. But I heard that some auctioneers on the block were quite arrogant and refused bids, and that then puts a bit of tension between you and the bidder, which is not what you want. So you've got to read the play and go, well, if I say no to this bid, what's that going to do to that psyche of that bidder? Are they going to go into their shell and stop bidding? Well, it's not a smart move. Or are they going to respect you and then come back with a higher bid? And that's just reading people and
reading the room.
Yeah. So bidding increments. If you're in a higher dollar value, so if you're in 5 millions, you might take hundreds. Whereas you've at a $700,000 property, you're not going to go up in hundreds, are you? Because you're never going to get a bid. So you've got to also determine what's the value of the property to determine what increments you go up in.
Can you remember your first auction?
Yep. It was out at Melbourne Road on that old primary school, and it was with Gartland, and no bids, passed it in. In actual fact, I was hoping there weren't any because I'd practiced so many auctions where no one bid, because that's something I can control. As soon as someone bids, you've got interaction and you've got to kind of perceive what's going on. If no one bids, it's only you. So I just went through this whole script of what I was going to say, and I nailed it. I was hoping
to pass the property in.
Yeah, hoping no one bid. I remember the first one I sold though was in Mowat Street in Geelong West, and this is like 16 years ago. But like I'm sure you've done with clients, I remember the first milestones that I did in all of my profession.
How'd it go? So you sold the property?
Yeah.
How was your performance?
At the time, I think it was my second auction. I think it went fairly well for my second auction. But yeah, if I was me looking back on it now, I'd go, geez, you've made a lot of mistakes there. But
do you like the auction?
Yeah.
Yep. Do you get nervous before the auction?
Yep.
Still, as much as you did early days?
No. So in the early days, I would sit up on a Friday night and I'd read the whole contract and I'd know my script and I knew everything and I'd have all my lines that I was going to say and I'd kind of read them on the day of auction. Whereas now I kind of wake up on a Saturday morning and go, and when I get to the property, I'm like,
Where am I?
Yeah. But to me, because I now know what I'm doing, if I'm scripted, it doesn't flow. So I kind of have 3 dot points of what I'm going to talk about. And sometimes I talk about those, sometimes I don't. But I still have word for word what I'm going to say. It's like a security blanket.
You do have word for word.
I do, but I never read it.
Is that the same script for each auction or word for word unique to that property?
Both. So the same script for like the generic legal stuff that you've got to say, I've got written down. I never read it, but it's there in case I have a mental blank.
Yeah.
And then same, then when I'm talking about the property.
Have you ever gone blank, like just completely blank and go, I don't know what words are going to come out of my mouth next?
I have for probably 2 seconds, where for me that felt like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But to the general public, they probably just thought I was catching a breath or something. So, yeah. But you think, I don't know, I think strange things when I'm up there. Like sometimes, because I'm so like comfortable doing it now, sometimes I'm like in another world and I'm calling this auction, I'm not even there. And then I come back to it, I'm like, but I'll be like thinking about the run I went on that morning or whatever. But then I quickly come back to it. So like footy, we talk about that. You remember when the feeling you had when you ran out on the day?
Yep.
You would kind of know, or if you look back, you'd know whether you're going to play well or not based on like your adrenaline and your excitement. And some days you just didn't feel it and you played shit. It's the same with auctions. If I'm not nervous and excited about it, then I usually don't call a very good auction because that adrenaline makes me act.
Yeah, that sick feeling in your gut.
Yeah.
You kind of get used to it after a while and go, oh, that's a good sign.
Yeah. But you also think, if I do 3 auctions on a Saturday, I'm getting up and then I'm coming down and then I'm going up and then I'm coming down as far as my adrenaline. At the end of the day, you're fucked.
So how many, what's the most you've done in a day?
5.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're cooked, mentally cooked by the end of that.
Absolutely stuffed. And I shouldn't do, I do 3 maximum now because I've now worked out that by the 4th, I'm no good.
When you first started doing auctions, obviously have you got an offsite in house? Tom back?
Yeah, Tom and I work as a team.
Okay. Yeah. When you first started, did you have an offsider? Did you have an assistant? So that was another thing that you, I think, did differently in the industry, is that you invested in people around you so that you could be more client-facing.
Yeah. So I put everyone around me to do the things that I didn't think were as important to a client as what I could do. Yep. And I just put myself in a position where I negotiate.
You put yourself in the income-producing seat.
Yep. Yeah, which is what the client wants, but you can't not do the other parts. Like you've got a receptionist, you're not going to sit there and answer the phone because it's not going to be the best interest of your clients to do that. It's not a non-valuable position. It's super valuable. Any position is, but it's not what you do best.
And you needed someone to do all the social media for you, mate, because you got to take some happy snaps. Every weekend you'd see you plastered across my Facebook.
Yeah, lots of but you never saw the bad ones, did you?
Well, no, I didn't see them. No, I didn't.
No.
But I also like how, and I don't know how much of it you make up, or how much of it is real. I'm sure it's all legit. But actually, I think there was one yesterday or the day before where you're actually quoting a client. Like you quote clients a lot and what they actually say, which brings a sense of realism to the experience. That was one of the other things I wanted to talk about, just in terms of managing expectations. Obviously, the property market at the moment, the property market goes in cycles. We can sort of talk to that, but how do you go about setting expectations for vendors like that? Yeah. And, well, for all parties involved, but how have you found over time? Because, again, most people think they know what their property's worth, or they know what they want, or they know what they need to actually either buy the next property or extinguish the debt on it, and that rules a lot of their thinking, I would imagine. From my experience, that's the way it is. How have you found setting expectations for clients? How do you manage it?
Well, like everything I've done in real estate is just be completely upfront. And I actually lose a lot of business because I'm probably sometimes too honest at the start, where other agents will fill in with hot air and then disappoint them later. It's just not in my nature to do that. And I make mistakes. I'm not always right, by the way. Like sometimes I give an estimate that might be too high or too low or whatever it is. But for me at the moment, it's motivation. So why are you actually looking to sell? Because if you don't need to sell, then don't, because we're not in a great market. It's as simple as that. So some people are like, I just want to cash in on this property. Then what are you going to do with that money? You're
going to move out and move into the same market.
Yeah. That's okay then. But if If you're selling to then go and rent and then try and buy back in later on when the market goes back up, it's not a smart move. Excuse me. So to me, motivation is the key. Do you have to sell? Do you want to sell? I don't determine the value of any property unless I'm buying it. So neither does the owner. And I make that really clear at the start, is you and I in this room, we've got no say over the value of this property. I negotiate the best outcome with the best buyer, but I don't determine whether it's worth $1 million or 1.2. The market does. And I facilitate that. And how can I get the best out of that market? By putting them in a transparent environment. Everyone at the moment's fearful of overpaying. So if I can show Jay that Kari is prepared to pay $1 million, then you'll probably pay $1.10 million because you've seen, okay, well, someone else is prepared to do it. So social proof, Jones theory, whatever you want to call it, well, then I'm comfortable to do that. And then so Kari's prepared to pay $1.20 million because she's seen you do it and she really wants the house.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. But under a private sale, when Kari makes an offer of $1 million and I ring you and go, Jay, we've got an offer. You go, how much is it? And I go, oh, I can't tell you that. You're like, well, how do I know what to pay? You go, that's your problem. I'll just wait. And then I sell it for $1 million. I've just missed out on 20, 30, 50 grand for my vendor purely because of the method of sale that I directed them down. So to me, the auction process is superior in every way because it puts a deadline at the end of it. So in a declining or flat market like we're in, it makes buyers make a decision at the end of the day.
Did you miss the online auction piece? Had you changed?
Oh, I did a few of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine. It's not as comfortable, but everyone in every profession had to adapt to technology and you would have done the same.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So you just do what you got to do. And I'm a big believer. I had a vendor ask me last night because we're doing a lot of midweek auctions. Well, if we were doing it on Saturday, would we get a better result? Why would we get a better result? Oh, because more buyers are coming through properties on Saturdays. The auction's not the day where people are coming through properties. That's the day that they buy it.
Yeah.
Leading up, of course, we're going to do Saturday open for inspections and as many opportunities buyers to see as possible. But I'm a believer, if people want to buy a house, I could do an auction at midnight on Christmas Eve and people would turn up and buy it.
Yeah, if they want the house.
Yeah. Now, would you get the crowd? Probably not. They're going to be in bed, but I don't care. I just want the buyers there. And the buyers, if they want to buy a home, we're not talking about a Happy Meal here. We're talking about a piece of real estate that's going to change someone's life. They'll turn up if they want to buy the home. And if they don't, what time of the day or day you do it on doesn't matter.
Yeah. Touch on it briefly, but what's happening in the market at the moment from your perspective? What are you seeing? You're seeing people sort of park and wait because they're either scared of overpaying or people are hesitant to list. What's happening? Obviously, the rising interest rates is putting probably the desired result from the Reserve Bank. They're trying to squeeze people a little bit, which will in turn curb inflation. The flow-on effect is that it makes it harder to get access to money.
Yep.
What are you seeing at the coalface of property? What are people buying? What are they selling? What's not moving?
So it really is quite price range specific. So if we talk in the sort of lower price ranges where we're looking at first home buyers, if you were a first home buyer now and you could lend $800,000 and the interest rates go up next month, you can then lend $770. They're just hypothetical numbers there, random numbers. It's not whether you want to spend $800, it's that you can't. The bank won't allow you to do that. So therefore, your ability to go and pay $800 is now gone. Yep. You're going to look for something around $770. So clients that are selling a property in that price range have to understand that the buyers aren't choosing to spend less. They just can't get the funds. So they either choose to sell it for less because that's the market or they hold on to it. It's pretty black and white, cut and dry. And then once again, it comes to the motivation of selling. Why are you selling that? Oh, because we want to put that $770, we want to pay off some debt and put that into shares. Okay, that's a valid reason. Go and do that because now you're putting it into something that might be growing over time or whatever it might be. You're the advisor, not me. But what's the motivation for releasing that capital? As we all know, build costs have gone through the roof. So during COVID, people were not selling because they were spending $50,000 improving their current house to add another bedroom or a deck or something like that because it was cheaper to do that than sell and buy something else. You know, selling costs, stamp duty to buy something else about $50,000. So why not just put that into your own house? Whereas that $50,000 to do that now is probably 120, 150. Yep. So now people are saying, I want to sell and buy something already done. So it's completely flipped on what it used to be. So buyers are now looking for something, as we call it, turnkey or they can sell something that needs a bit of work to move into something that doesn't, because to spend that money on doing it yourself is going to be more than actually selling and buying something already done.
Yep.
So the properties that are fully renovated or new or something like that are more desirable now than the ones that need a bit of work. It's like that.
Well, what about we did a little bit in the sort of the baby boomer and beyond age group that are downsizing. There's obviously some incentives now for people to be able to downsize and slide some of the capital that they have into super and the like to help fund retirement. Are you seeing that more or less? Are you seeing people in sort of the older demographic downsizing, releasing equity at the moment, or is it a bit similar to everything else that's kind of parked on the sidelines?
Yeah. Some people leave it too late and then are forced to do it, and others read the future and go, well, I'm not getting any younger, so I'll wait a couple of years to see what the market does and then sell. But we all know they've got to go somewhere. So if they're moving to Queensland to be closer to family, what's the market doing up there? Let's look at the other end of it as well. It's not just what you're getting here. It's, are you moving to a retirement village? Are the costs going to go up in the next couple of years? Supply and demand. Can you get something now? So you've just got to look at both ends of the spectrum.
So you're literally having those conversations with clients. You're
100%.
You're looking at the second and third order effects of them buying or selling the property, which I think is super important, because if you don't know that, it's pretty hard for you to have a...
Well, it's a consultative approach. Yeah. It's not just, I don't just negotiate a sale. I want to work out how do we get the best out of it.
Well, I think a lot of people, that's their expectation, that this is what this, maybe that's the reason why agents historically, like financial planners historically, have maybe been tarred with that brush.
Oh, well, a lot of agents would be, no, sell now, and probably make valid reasons, but they're really selfish reasons because I want a commission now. I'm happy to, we have a property in Geelong West that I've told the owner to take it off, and we've just put a tenant in it for the next couple of years because it's not worth selling for the figures that we had it on the market. I said, do you have to sell? No, well, don't. It's as simple as that. Just don't sell. Put a tenant in. To me, the people that are going to get the best out of this market are people that are upgrading.
Yep.
And you probably know this, but I'll explain why. Is if I've got a property worth $700,000 and I'm looking to buy something worth $1.4 million in the same market, so let's say it comes back 10%. The 700 properties come down to 630. The 1.4 has come down to 1.27 or something, whatever the math is.
I'm not good with numbers.
Neither.
Mate.
But by the time you've actually done that transaction, you're actually ahead, because the higher value properties come back 10%, which is $140,000. The lower value properties come back 70. So you're actually ahead $70,000 by selling now and buying something in the same market. The other way is not true if you're selling something dear and buying something cheaper. So you've just, once again, you've got to look at the circumstances, and I need to be able to explain that to people for them to see the light and go, now's not the right time. No, it's not. I've told plenty of people in the last few months, don't sell.
I think the rape and pillage approach of getting a deal done, I think what people forget, and this is probably, you probably had this conversation with some of those younger agents that you mentor, and I do with some of our younger graduates, is that you've got to live in this town. Like Geelong is a brilliant place if you're doing the right thing by people, but if you do the wrong thing by people, you may as well just buck off.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's going to come back and burn you back to the importance of relationships, long-standing relationships, and they're everything in business, and particularly in a place like Geelong, which we both love. Mate, I think I've probably kept you for much longer than you told me you had. It's 12:15. Let's wrap it up, mate, with how people can get in touch with you. So where can they find you at Gartland's? How can they get in contact with you if they want you to sell their property for them?
We're at Gartland, so gartland.com.au. My number is 0438 299 001, and you can just text me, or you can look me up on Facebook or Instagram. I probably reply faster on social media than I do on a text message. So, yeah, any one of those mediums.
Any other closing comments, mate, before we let you go?
It's been on my mind that when I sold your house for you, didn't sell for the figures that you wanted or that I suggested that you would get. And I might be shooting myself in the foot and get a comment or reply that I don't expect here, but how did that make you feel? You know, who did you blame?
From my point of view, it was the market. I mean, the market dictated we had an auction that I don't think we got a bid, did we?
No. We got an offer afterwards, which was not where it needed to be.
Yeah.
But the reason I ask you that question is that's what most vendors are experiencing right now, is they're not getting the figures that they're hoping to get.
Yeah.
But I think it's negligible for the agent to say, I will get you this, or I promise that, or...
I think if I was in a different world, I mean, live in a world of markets and fluctuations, and also had a wife that's fairly emotive. I'm less emotive.
Yeah.
So Kari was pretty emotive about it. For me, what I remember about that is how much you went into bat for us. How much you went into bat for us at every level. Pre the auction, I mean, we got a spread in the Addy. We even post that, when we had the disappointment of actually not selling at auction, you didn't disappear on us.
Yeah.
You continued to work for us to get a deal done. And like you said, what was the motivation? What did we actually want? Like, what were we trying to do? We needed to sell that so that we could move on to bigger and better things. So it was going to happen one way or the other. We were going to sell that place and move on. Did we get the result we wanted? Probably not.
Yeah.
And listen, if we'd been, maybe 6 months earlier, because again, Kari's telling me the place around the corner looks exactly like ours, is sold for $1 million. It's got a pool. It's a little bit different, darling, but no. Do I hold you responsible for that? No. Is it disappointing? So as a vendor, it's impossible to say that you're not emotive. And I suppose when it's your principal place of residence too, as opposed to an investment property, there's another layer of emotional attachment. But
sentimental value, we call it.
Yeah.
Is that some vendors value their property because it's got their memories in it.
Yeah.
More than the person coming in and seeing it as bricks and mortar.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I value about that experience is that it didn't go great.
Yeah.
And that it didn't make me think less of you or less of agents. It is what it is. And in fact, it probably says more about the type of person you are. The fact that it didn't go great and you didn't disappear on us. You got a deal done. You made it happen. And we move on. And in the grand scheme of things, it just doesn't matter.
Sure, that was a long answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, mate. Well, anything else you want to say before we close it up?
No, this is an awesome podcast.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you're keen to understand more about how financial advice could benefit you, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Burke Britton FP, or Google Burke Britton Financial Partners. Check out our client reviews, testimonials, and make a time to meet one of our certified financial planners by clicking Book Now on our website. Thanks for listening.
Any information contained in this podcast is of a general nature only. No account was taken as to the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. Therefore, before making any decision, listeners should consider the appropriateness of any information with regard to their particular objective, financial situation, needs, and seek independent advice from a licensed professional specific to their circumstances.
All right, hit it.
That translates to don't be a moron and act on what some random person says on a podcast. Take personal responsibility. Do your homework. Ask questions and speak to an actual human that knows what they're talking about before you do anything. PB Financial Solutions Proprietary Limited, trading as Burke Britton Financial Partners, are authorised representatives of AMP Financial Planning Limited, AFS, licence number 232706.